Although each tenant service request is unique to an extent, they all fall under a specific category. The category will determine how you approach a service request. Some will be handled with urgency, while others will be scheduled for months in advance. In order to schedule these, though, you need to be aware of their role in ensuring your properties remain in great shape. This is a short chapter. It's an introduction to the types of maintenance requests you will deal with. It is not the how we deal with them. That part will be discussed in a later chapter when we discuss each type of workflow in detail. Now let's get started. All right, the different types of maintenance are emergencies, unannounced service requests, preventative maintenance, then seasonal, and finally cosmetic maintenance. Let's discuss each of them on the following slides. As soon as you receive an emergency service request, drop everything. Mitigating the problem at hand should be your main priority. Only then you can start thinking of repairing the damage done. An example of mitigation when dealing with a severe water leak or flooding could be immediately shutting off the main water valve to prevent further flooding, or using water pumps and vacuums to remove standing water. Only once the source of the problem is mitigated, you can start the process of restoring and repairing. In this same example, that could mean opening the windows and using fans or dehumidifiers to start drying out the area. Once that is done, you can send in the drywall repair guys. On-site approval is the process where a vendor asks for their estimate's approval. Of course, this will only happen in case the estimated price exceeds the not to exceed amount bound by your contract with the owner. It's important to understand that vendors will be on site, waiting for your reply. Their time is just as valuable as yours, so make sure you minimize their waiting time. In case of emergencies, you should always expect the cost to exceed the NTE amount. To make sure this goes smoothly, immediately inform the owner when an emergency is reported and ask the owner to keep their phone close by. How are you currently handling after-hour emergency calls? Because relying on an answering service that's often not equipped to dispatch your preferred vendors is not an ideal situation, especially not when dealing with emergencies. Don't forget, after hours means between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m., and people often get home from work after 5 and wake up much earlier than 9. Once your company gets to a certain size, relying on an answering service is no longer an option. I suggest making sure your team is always available and give them the necessary freedom to deal with emergencies in particular. We also suggest having emergency-specific provisions in your owner contract, which allows your coordinators to approve higher estimated amounts in case immediate actions would prevent further damage. Request more freedom to make educated decisions in case your owners are not available during the mitigation process. Unannounced SRs are usually submitted by tenants, but they're not considered emergencies. This could be a damaged window screen or even a malfunctioning HVAC unit when temperatures are at a cozy 70 degrees. Although these are not emergencies, it's important to try to resolve these issues as soon as possible. For one, your tenants will thank you for it. The problem presented might not be that big of a nuisance to tenants, but it holds up real estate in their thoughts. And also, the faster you close out service requests, the less you have to follow up with, and the less chance you have of creating the snowball effect. One way to minimize work order turnaround times is by implementing a high enough NTE amount. This stands for not to exceed. We briefly touched on this on the previous slide, but allow me to explain a bit more. The higher an NTE amount, the more freedom you give to your vendors, but also the more you will have to trust them with pricing. It is crucial that you verify that your vendors understand this concept, because we've seen it happen before where a vendor assumed that the NTE amount was a pre-approved amount for a specific service request. That is rarely the case, and the vendor should not assume that. Instead, the NTE amount is a pre-approved amount for all different trades or all potential service requests. In order for this to work optimally, consider implementing a $500 NTE amount. Lower than $500 will increase the on-site approval calls and multi-trip repairs. Higher than that will expose you to higher risk, because once your share the amount with your vendor and they already got to work, it will be hard to fight them on pricing. Considering that these service requests come unannounced, you will need to already have your vendor network in place. I know that is obvious, but what's less obvious is to prepare for high season. During the summer months, residents seem to wake up from their winter sleep and all of your vendors will be busy. Make sure your list is large enough and maintain relationships with all of them throughout the year. The vendors you use the least will often be the ones who will come and rescue you when you're in a pickle. Preventative maintenance is much less time sensitive unless you're not proactive. If you are starting today, consider laying out the different preventative maintenance initiatives you'd like to present to your owner for the remainder of the year. By breaking them down by the season, you'll have a clear view on when to start scheduling them. After you've decided on which initiatives you will present to your owners, I recommend writing a document informing owners on the why, the how, and the when. As we've seen before, owners can only make educated decisions if they're presented with the correct information. If you've performed preventative maintenance in the past, you should have an idea of the number of owners who will be willing to participate. Based on the data, you can negotiate a better price. If it is the first time, I suggest negotiating pricing based on the amount of owners you feel like will participate. That might be hard to do, and it will most likely not be 100% correct, but the fact is that you need to know the price before reaching out to your owners. Without the price, owners won't be able to make a decision. Now, you're ready to send out the proposal to your owners, informed with the why, how, when, and price. It should be easy to get a yes or no from your owners. Consider using forms to collect the opt-in data. That allows you to send out a mass email with a link to the form to collect the data. Your other option would be to send out emails and collect the opt-ins manually. But believe me, that's a headache and prone to making mistakes. Now that you know which owners want to participate, you're ready to brief your vendors. Each vendor has their own way of working, but I suggest sharing a spreadsheet with them so you can track their progress. Different seasons present different problems. The main reason we're highlighting the different seasons is to allow us to prepare for what is coming. Whether it's onboarding more vendors for specific trades or being aware of seasonal specific risks, splitting up the year in seasons makes things a bit easier to manage. During winter, you'll be hit with malfunctioning heating systems or burst water pipes. And on top of that, beware certain risk factors like CO poisoning or slippery pavement. Springtime is often met with lots of rainy days. Winter just passed, and the roofing damage due to cold weather has been done. So this is the time you will find out what roofs need repairs, and leaks are considered emergencies, so make sure to have roofers on call. During springtime is when we start preparing for summer preventative maintenance as well. Summertime is busy season, as I'm sure you're aware. Not only will you be dealing with AC related service requests, but on top of that, most leases end during this period. That means your team will be working overtime, but luckily you have already done the hard work of making sure your HVAC vendor network is solid and preventative maintenance was scheduled months in advance. Not to mention the problems you have already prevented by implementing these preventive checkups. During fall, things slow down a bit, allowing you to prepare for the winter preventative maintenance, taking on those leaking roofs and making sure your tenants or vendors are emptying the gutters. Cosmetic service requests are rarely urgent unless you're dealing with a vacant home waiting for its new tenants to move in. For the majority of cosmetic work orders, the units will be vacant. That's just because home improvements are usually done in between tenants. As long as a tenant does not complain about chipping wall paint, it won't be noticed and it won't be a priority to the owner either way. Now, the first thing potential tenants notice when they arrive at a property is its exterior. Curb appeal plays a crucial role in creating a positive first impression. A well-maintained and visually appealing property sends a message of care and attention to detail. On the other hand, a neglected or unkept exterior can raise concerns about the overall condition of the property. Take the time to enhance your property's curby appeal and invest in landscaping. Keep the lawn neatly mowed, trim hedges and bushes, and add some colorful flowers or plants to create an inviting atmosphere. A clean and attractive exterior can immediately captivate potential tenants and pique their interest in exploring the rest of the property. Of course, this goes hand in hand with having the nicest home on the block, because keeping up with the Joneses is real. If a property is the nicest one on the block, it will be off the market in no time.